Trustees, today is February 5th. We are here at the board workshop, and first of all, I'm so grateful to the members of our Citizens Advisory Committee that are attending this meeting. We have 7 of our members that are sitting to my right, and several are sitting in the audience. So thank you for taking time out of your personal and professional lives to be here as we talk about the future of our district and the growth in the fastest growing community in the country, Georgetown, Texas. As well, trustees, we are going to start off with a presentation from our CAC, and then we will take a break and then transition into talking about our projections on the budget for next year as well. I also want you to know that our financial advisor, Dan Wegmiller, is sitting behind you as well in case there are any other questions related to finance that he may assist with. I am going to turn it over to Mr. Lee Nichols to start our CAC presentation.
Good morning.
Oh, can we, if I can ask you to pause, Mr. Nichols.
We're going to do now presenting budget.
Curveball, good Lee. We are going to pause for just a minute.
We call that an icebreaker.
And we are back. Mr. Nichols.
Good morning. My name is Lee Nichols, and I'm excited to be here to be a member of the Citizens Advisory Committee and to kick off our presentation today to give you our recommendations for the 2024 bond program. First, I'd like to thank you, the board, for authorizing us to get together as a community and the past few months to sit down and work with Dr. Pavel and the GISD staff to go through the process of coming up with these recommendations. And second, I'd just like to thank the GISD staff for their commitment and their efforts in giving us all the information. Without them, we'd probably be completely lost. And they've been excellent throughout the whole process, and we're really grateful for their time and effort and their late nights and working with us. So we really appreciate it. So here's just a quick overview of what we'll be presenting today. We definitely want to keep this informal, so please feel free to ask questions as we go through. We just want to have like this as a conversation. So, like I said, informal, ask questions as you feel. So we just want to have a conversation today. So now, what we're going to do is just kind of give you a quick overview of who we are and our charge of information and so forth. So first, I'd like to introduce myself. As I mentioned, I'm Lee Nichols. I'm a senior transportation planner with Taft Associates. I've been living here in Georgetown for 4 years now. I have a son who's 9 years old, who is in 4th grade at Wolf Ranch Elementary. And my wife, Gabriella, is a Spanish teacher at Tippett Middle School.
I'm John Schwepke. I'm retired, 12 years in Georgetown. I've lived, previous to that, I came from New Mexico and in upstate New York. I wish I was on school boards in both those communities, so I recognize all the hard effort you guys put in. I really want to say thank you for putting together a Citizens Committee. This is my 3rd time on the Citizens Committee for bonds. And by far, I think it was the smoothest and best run. So just want to let you know you've got really good stuff going on.
Hi, my name is Angela Mormon. I have lived in this community for 13 years, and I know that we moved here specifically for our daughter to start elementary school, and she graduates this year. So while I am an attorney by training, I do environmental law. I will also be graduating from what has largely been my second full-time job for the past 13 years, being a professional driver and scheduler. I have all sorts of skills now that I'm not sure that my education taught me. So I've actually worked in the community since 2003. So over 20 years, I've either lived or worked here. This is also my 3rd CAC. It was in many ways, it was the most enjoyable. It was the one where I believe that as members, we felt more a part of the process this time than in the past. So, happy to share the information with you today.
Hi, I'm Gordon Logan. I'm the founder and chairman of the Sport Club Haircut, which is headquartered here in Georgetown. And Peggy and I have lived in Georgetown since 1985. Obviously, some key changes in the last 4 years. Both of our kids graduated from Georgetown High School, and our son Edward lives here in Georgetown now. This is my second CAC, and very well put together process and gives us a ton of information on this to make decisions and recommendations.
My name is Brent Blake. I'm a parent. I have a freshman at Georgetown High School, and I have a freshman at Colorado State. Both of my kids have spent their entire education career in Georgetown, and we've been in Georgetown for 15 years. I'm a project executive for DPR Construction, a commercial construction company here in Austin. I agree with the rest of the committee in the fact that this was an extremely well put together citizen advisory committee, very well knowledgeable, and gave us the information we needed in order to make decisions for the community.
Good morning, I'm Laura Kinchlow, and I have been a part of the Georgetown community my entire life, aside from a few years of college and getting started in my career. My husband works for the district as a teacher and a coach. I'm a future parent, and I am a product of Georgetown schools, and so many of the programs that we'll talk about today, I had direct experience with, and I'm very excited to have participated in the CAC. This is my first experience, and participated in the strategic planning last year as well with GISD, and so I'm just grateful to be here. I am Kim Didingnack, and I am a former classroom teacher and former professor, and now a consultant, and I am also an advocate for public schools. I am a parent. I have a 16-year-old, so he goes to Georgetown High School. He's a basketball player, and he's also in the band, and he's also very excited to do rocketry next year at the CTE campus. So looking forward to that, and I am proud to say that I was on the committee that visited the CTE campus. So this is my third CAC committee. And a little bit more about me. I lived in Georgetown for 16 and a half years, but my familia has been in this area for over 100 years. And so yeah, very dedicated to this committee and this district.
Thanks. And as Dr. Pavel mentioned, there are some other CAC members here in the group, so if y'all could stand up or raise your hand and let us know where you are. Great. And we appreciate you taking your time out of your schedules to join us today. So next, just a little brief kind of an overview of who makes up our committee. So there's 73 other individuals besides us who make up the Community Citizens Advisory Committee. And each of them had 6 meetings from September of last year through January. And each meeting had about 45 members. 85% have some sort of affiliation with Georgetown Independent School District. And 15% represent local business organizations. 32% represented educators. And what was nice is that 100% of the members represented all the GISD campuses. So we had full representation of every single campus within the Georgetown ISD, which I think was really great because we got input from every one of those campuses. So I think that was really important in experiencing people that see the growth and in our communities, know about overcrowding, temporary buildings, and the need for the additional, the need for the bond program here, and the additional schools and facilities that are needed within our district. So the next few slides, these are going to have a lot of text on them, so I won't go through them, and you've probably seen this before. So I'm just going to read some highlights on these next few slides. So really, the purpose of the CAC is to provide facility, infrastructure, and equipment recommendations to the Board of Trustees after analyzing existing facilities, enrollment projections, financial data, community survey results, and other data relevant in creating and maintaining learning environments that align with the district's mission, visions, and goals. And now our charge. Again, these are our charges to the CECs of what we were asked to do. And this is really to consider the educational needs of all students within the district, be a voice for the community as a whole, and bring you the recommendation that is fiscally sound, aligns with the vision, mission, and goals of the district, adheres to the law, and incorporates community feedback. And I'm proud to say that I believe we have accomplished every single one of these. Throughout all of our meetings, this is a very diverse group of people, and we had very civil, intelligent, just thoughtful discussions on what was best for this community. And really, I wish some of our federal and state legislators could sit down and say that. Everybody has their own opinions, but everybody, ultimately we came to a common opinion because we know what was best for our students. And it was really nice to see. So I'm really proud of the work that these people have done. So, and then, there's some parameters outlined for us to accomplish this. And the one that we really want to highlight is that we recognize that you, the board, will determine the structure and content of any potential bond issue. And what we share with you today is our recommendation for you to consider. So as I mentioned earlier, we had 6 meetings, and I'll just kind of briefly go over, kind of the structure of each meeting. So our first meeting was in September, and this really focused on informing the committee on the district's core values, so we can keep those at the forefront of our work. We reviewed the bond history, we learned about school finance and looked at the demographer's report. So we not only saw the current growth, projected growth, not only in the region, but each school, to really see how each school was growing and when they were going to become in capacity. That was really eye-opening. And being a transportation planner, I look at these from a transportation perspective, but see it as a school perspective, it is shocking how those two relate. When you look at roadway capacity and school capacity growth, it's amazing how those relate. Meeting number 2, we defined a consensus, which for us was a simple majority of 51%. Financial experts came in and educated us on bond capacity and tax rate scenarios that informed us how to prioritize projects. In addition, the district shared us a facility assessment that identified additional needs, such as maintenance and repair projects, that informed us the challenges with aging and evolving facilities and the capital resources needed to support those growing programs. And then our November meeting, we looked at the proposed new construction projects. I think it's important to note that the voters approved funds in 2021 to design certain projects the district anticipated needing in the future. And I think those designs include the third high school, renovations of the old Knoll to the new Frost. And this foresight really allows the district to move quickly following a successful election to provide just-in-time relief, to build these schools, to relieve some of the crowded campuses that we currently have. So we don't have to wait that additional time to design the schools. The design is done. So if this election passes and you approve the bond and it passes, we can quickly get these schools under construction and going. So that will like I said, get those schools complete, get the students there, and relieve those crowding into those overcrowded schools. In December, we heard from experts in the construction field about the rising cost of construction and how difficult it is to, project cost of construction and how valuable those cost projections are right now. And we also heard from the district leaders in fine arts and athletics who talked about their needs in their programs. My notes just went crazy. During our meeting number 5 in January, we all came back fresh after the holidays and ready to get back to work. We heard from our district staff regarding technology and evolving techniques, reviewed updated project cost estimates, and then we did a group exercise called Build a Bond. So we got together in groups and we did an exercise where we actually prioritized projects, ranked them as definitely yes, maybe, and not at this time, not a no, but not at this time. It's something, there are other needs that are a higher priority than this. So we built those bond programs. So that was our main exercise as a group. So then we came back at our final meeting just a few weeks ago on January 23rd, and they gave us an overview of what that Build a Bond program looked like. And then we did an individual exercise where personally we looked at the ones, we had 100% consensus on these yes programs or projects. And we looked at the other projects and we individually ranked what we felt should be yes, maybe, or not at this time. We ranked those. And then as we keep going through this presentation, you'll see how those worked out in the process and the roadmap and to how we got to our recommendation today. So I will now, the one thing I mentioned, this was a very thorough and transparent process. It was, for me, this is my first time on being this type of committee. It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot about how schools are funded. And it was nice to meet new people, get different perspectives, and it was very interesting and a learning experience for me. So I enjoyed it very much. But now I will be quiet and turn it over to John, where he will discuss the roadmap and decision-making process.
All right, so I'll get my AAA guidebook out here. All right. And what I'm going to share today, there we go. And I always enjoy working with schools because I learn every time. And my project curation roadmap, that's the first time in my life I've used the phrase curation. So, I don't know, it's learning every day. But it shows, we'll start with number 1. When we came and we looked at maintenance, which always takes precedent, but at the same time, and we know it gets slid down the road. So what really needs to be done? What has to be done this time through? And we started looking at that. If we were presented information, we got sheets of paper, this is binders, this is everything we have that was presented to us. The maintenance team also listed the facility needs, sort of like we do as a home, but I think some of us, if the water starts coming in through the roof, we know it's coming in. Sometimes the way these schools are constructed, you don't know that water's leaking until it starts blowing and stuff like that. So you really need to look at the buildings and find out what's going on. Then we had our district demographer work with us, and he also works with the district and the city officials to look at projections, which is scary. I mean, having started at my school stuff in New York State where the school districts actually are declining. And here you look at the growth projections, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's like we're the place to be, so we are. We took a look at prioritization of the buildings, and I would say also the content of what's being taught, because our schools try to provide our students with the groundwork to be successful in life. And that, you know, they do that very well. And we have a great school system. And I think by looking at this, one of my things, I really want to make sure this continues. Long after I'm not around, and we really should have the best school system in the state. Actually, the country, because we have the capacity to do that. We have great people, great staff, people that help us. Anytime we had a question, they were there giving us support. So number 3, we started looking at the various campuses. Also looking at, I guess maintenance, because maintenance takes up different places depending on where you are, what it's building, whether it's the maintenance group that has a maintenance group themselves, but they have a maintenance of their structure. So you start looking at how that fits in. Then we came into the facilities review. Like, again, this is my 3rd time on here, so I looked at these facility reviews because just because they planned to do something 5 years ago, it might have got done. Maybe it got shifted because of financing or whatever else. So what's happening now? What leaks sprung in what building? What PA system doesn't work? What clock in one building is 8 o'clock and the next building is 9 o'clock? Which is sort of confusing to people. So, you know, we have to realize that does take place, and those things are important. I always wonder if we just don't put battery operated clocks up and just never, you know, change the batteries once a year, you know. But anyway, the facilities review that started prioritizing some things that needed to be done right away, like remodels and whatever else. And we got together, we had, I don't know what brought it here, but we had little stickers, red, yellow, blue. So we started writing and putting up what is the priority, what is it, and we did this, and we were all set up in tables. So we kept talking about what was going on. So hopefully when we get done, we'll have shared everything that we've gotten at the committee with the board, and you guys will be like, we know it all. But then actually, hopefully you have questions, and then you can absorb it and come back and make the decisions that need to be made. All right. The bond planning process. Assess the needs of existing facilities. Then we.
Not really, but I can make out the big picture.
All right. We took a look at looking at the deficiencies, inequities of the existing campuses. Then we review the financial capacity, which is always interesting because in a growing district and in the growing house prices that we have in our area, the capacity keeps growing. So, I mean, it's fortunate. It's a good thing. Even though people might think when they look at the tax bill because their value of their house doubled in the last 7 years or something, that's not good. But yet, as a whole bonding process and everything else, it's good. Reviewing the financial data, and every time we do this, I know you were new this time, right? You look, you see the people, their eyes start glancing over when the finance person talks. And it's like, It's worse than income tax, yeah, it is. I mean, school taxes and the way they set it up, they're not done by logical people. Every state is that way. I mean, it's just really different. We look at the demographics of the district, the enrollment projections, and those are scary because there's areas that growth is that we don't have buildings. And there's areas that we have growth and no, or less growth than we should have, and they have buildings here. Maybe we can remodel it and repurpose it. And I think that's great. There's nothing better than a repurposed building because it takes, there's something about a building that you built 15, 20, 30 years ago, and then that you're using it for something else that's still there. I mean, that's a neat part of what happens. We've looked at areas where overcapacity is taking place, and if you drive out of our district and you head south, it's overcapacity. I mean, it's unbelievable between what we are now, and you head south, and you hit someplace down toward Round Rock, or where you head into the Round Rock district, and it's just, the growth is amazing. And then we still do the same thing. I just took a drive the other day on Williams Drive to the north, and hit Ronald Reagan. It's unbelievable. I have been there about 6 months. It's like a whole new area is developed. I mean, there's buildings, roads, everything. So you've got growth occurring there. And my only caveat, this might probably my last month, there's going to be development to the east. And that's not even, we really haven't talked about that in any place. All right. All right. We prioritize some of the projects at various stages throughout our process. And sometimes they change. They might just, did I do it right or wrong?
No, it's right. Oh, it's something else. She's
What we prioritize, and some of them change priorities. And we present, one of the things we're doing now is making a presentation to school board. That you can start looking at what we've gone through, labor over. In the bond process here, the next item will be up to the board calling the bond election. If the board decides what to call it, you have after you take action, you're required to take action on calling the bond within 78 days of the desired election date. So you have to do it within a time period. And that's sort of prioritizing the way we've done. We're looking at a May 2024 bond. The deadline is February 16th. How much time here? We know our board has the capacity to do that. So I'm done.
You're done. No, I'm okay. Okay, so I'm going to talk about numbers. I'm a lawyer. I don't know if numbers really fit into what I do, but we'll pretend. So district demographics and enrollment, and then some bond history. But first I'm going to talk about some of them are really fun numbers actually. But to start off, as you all know, GISD has 10 elementary schools, 4 middle schools, and 3 high schools. And in the fall, we're going to have another new elementary school, St. Gabriel Elementary. The Knoll Middle School will still be the 4th one, kind of, but it's going to move into a new location. And then we still have the three high schools, GHS, Eastview, and then Rasharte. 13,509 students. And I believe they told me we just went over the 13,500 number just recently.
Last week?
Just last week. So, 2,050 teachers and staff, a 97.5% graduation rate. We have a tax rate of $1.04, and that's actually rounded, but that's, a good estimate. A AA financial rating from S&P Global. I was also it's not up here, but also to note the last bond issue, in addition to approving the new elementary and the new Knoll, also approved the new Future Ready complex, so that's exciting in the fall, and 2 new ag barns. And I've seen pictures of the ag barns, and those are very cool. We are projected, GISD is projected to grow by 6,000 more students in the next 10 years. That's an incredible number, starting at 3,500 right now. 83%, actually that's not the number that's up there. Mine is different, so I have to try to read that. 33 to 38% increase in participation in fine arts and athletics. So for athletics, that's a 38% increase since 2021. So for example, at the high school, the two high schools, almost 50% of the student body participate in athletics of some sort at the high school level. For fine arts, it's been a 33% increase since 2021. And middle school and high school combined, we have an 83% participation rate. These are programs, both athletics and fine arts, that make kids' days at schools. And I say that with all of the responsibility of the parent that has taken my child to 6:30 a.m. practices and picked her up at 9:30 p.m. from rehearsals for musicals. And it changes kids, those programs. And my child will be going to college next year, and one of her majors will be a fine arts major. So one of your previous bonds bought harps. And my child started playing one of those harps in the 7th grade, and that is what she is going to go to college and do. So that's what these programs do for kids. Academically, there's a number on there, and I think it's still there. Yes, 2,790 college credits earned in 2022, 2023. That's equal to about $1 million in college tuition. Those are the credits earned through dual credit and dual enrollment, so through on-ramps and through ACC. That doesn't even touch the number of kids that took AP exams. Last year, GHS had a record number of students take AP exams, and I have these numbers because Elizabeth goes to GHS, but 491 students took AP exams, 799 total exams, and there was a 63.75% of the students made it 3 or better on the exams. It was a record number. There is a chart in the high school of all the kids who got a 5 on an exam. The font is slightly smaller this year to fit all of the kids because, you know, it's a set space. And now there's way more kids to put on them. We also have 14 industry-based certificate programs, 352 earned certificates last year, and I know y'all saw the pictures over the weekend of the floral students doing their certificate test. Those are really cool. 10-year forecast by campus for elementary schools. And you'll see on here that St. Gabriel is on here now, so these are the same numbers that you've seen recently. This is based on the latest demographer projections. And the yellow on the chart highlights the years when the campuses will exceed their capacity. So, you know, Wolf Ranch and Williams jump up there very quickly. Mitchell jumps up there. And you'll see these are just, Wolf Ranch is just 2 years from now, 2 school years from now. Williams is just 3 school years. Mitchell is just 4 school years. You'll see as we get on down the table, one of the recommendations is for elementary number 12. And in my real life as an attorney, I do really non-exciting things like permit wastewater treatment plants. And I know that sounds absolutely crazy and out of context. But it's really important because I've worked for an entity that experienced the same sort of huge growth that Georgetown is experiencing now. And once you fall behind, it's hard to catch up. And just the concept of elementary number 12 will keep us where we need to be as a school district to keep moving and adapting to the growth and making sure that our kids have places and good school rooms and school buildings to be in that aren't really crowded. This is the 10-year forecast for middle schools and high schools. You know, the 2 years out, 2025, 2026, we're still good. 3 years out, you have Tippett hit their capacity number and go over. You actually hit 90% of capacity in Tippett the previous year, Wagner in 2026, 27. So again, to keep looking at those growing numbers, they just keep going up. The greater capacity for another middle school is shown by the numbers. The high school numbers are there for Eastview, Georgetown, and Chartier. Eastview hits that over capacity next school year. Georgetown, various, just a few years down the road with the lead times that we're going to talk about for construction, as you all know. Another high school, these numbers will support that. And then one last slide here. The bond history since 1999. So for visual reference, this bond goes back to 1999. During that time, enrollment has grown by 80%. Since 1977, and it's not on here, we've had 11 bond elections over that 46 years. But in this chart, you can see that there's been 5 starting in 1999. We've already talked about that our last bond funded St. Gabriel Elementary, the new Binol, the future Ready Complex, 2 ag barns, and a host of other projects throughout the district that were to address aging buildings and maintenance and the evolving needs academically and in technology. The 2021 bond also funded design projects to renovate the old Binol into a new Frost Elementary and to expand the design so the new Frost Elementary would be larger, and to design a new comprehensive high school in the central part of town. You can see from that chart, and I actually can't see from that chart because the numbers are not numbers from here, but enrollment is projected to climb at a rate of about 4% annually. And in the 13 years that my daughter's been in school, it's only the past 4 or 5 that number's jumped so dramatically. Her first handful of years, Georgetown wasn't growing very fast. But just over the 13 years she's been here, there's been over a 2,900 increase in students, just in her time period. That's 226 more kids per grade when you get to the high school level, if you divide that up. You have to divide that between Eastview and GHS, of course. But that's a lot of kids. That's an extra classroom at every grade level in an elementary school, just in the time that she's been in school. And it only is going to go faster. The growth is projected to increase. And if you have any questions, that's all I have to present.
Okay, well, I hope I don't waste people's eyes on too much. Just to give a primer and a refresher for those people who've been watching more than me, school funding goes in 2 buckets: maintenance and operations, and INS, which is interest, and sinking fund, which is principal impact. The M&O budget, you see the green at the top of that slide, that's the amount that has to be repaid back to the state, goes into the general fund. And last year, GISD sent $45 million worth back to the state. This year will be a little bit less because of the compression, but it's a substantial number. The nice thing about the INS bucket, 100% of those funds stay in Georgetown. We do not have to repay any of those back up to the state. The GIS, the tax rate history over the last 5 years, we've seen a 26% decrease in the tax rate since the 2017-2018 school year. Even though there have been 2 bond issues during this period of time for a total of $500 million. So it's a good indication that even with living bond issues that help us accommodate the growth that it's already, we're still able to reduce rates substantially. The property tax rate currently is 16.69 cents lower than it was last year, which is substantial. M&O is about 2/3 of that, and the other third is roughly the interest from the second fund. But it's a substantial reduction we get. GISD has the second lowest tax rate in Williamson County. The only one that's lower than GISD is Round Rock, and as property values goes up, and the taxable base goes up, that makes a huge difference in the ability of the school district to keep rates low. Round Rock has a lot of retail, office, and manufacturing, and so forth, hotels that help keep their property rates down. GISD has a very record of keeping rates down. The tax rate impact on the average homeowner in GISD, assessed value is the taxable value, is the result after the homestead exemption. So even though that has gone down 7%, the tax impact to the average homeowner who's on home was a little bit over $500,000. That's about a 20% decrease in the tax. On investment, this is based on several factors. The value of the assessed property in the district is a big factor. The assumptions that we used in preparing these projections was that there's a moderate increase in the taxable value in the district for the next 4 years, and then it stays constant after that. Very conservative district. Also, the interest rate has a big impact on the ability to protect investment. In the projections on these were based on was 5.5% interest rate as the bonds were sold in August. And the school district typically does not sell all the bonds at once. They sell them as they do, so they spread out over a period of time. Also, the GISD 5.5% rate is substantially higher than the historical rate for school bonds, about 4.1%. And GISD is able to take advantage of the permanent school fund guarantee on bonds, which makes it even lower. So it's quite likely that the interest rate on these bonds will be substantially lower than what was used in the projections, which would increase the bond capacity. Also, GISD says that there's a great record of retirement on bonds early to save interest rate. We refunded over $160 million at lower interest rates, and we prepaid $47 million, which has saved over $60 million in interest costs. And if you look at this chart, each 1 cent increase in the tax rate affects the average homeowner less, perhaps substantially, all less once a month. So it's not a major impact on each individual homeowner, but it can make a huge difference in our ability on our schools. And rates do not go up in increments of 1 cent. So each quarter cent increase in the tax rate raises about $10 million. So that's something to take into consideration.
Thank you. So as part of the CAC process, a community survey was held. That survey wanted to address areas of support and concern and the tax rate impact tolerance. So as part of the survey, a little less than 1,200 people took the survey between December the 15th and January the 4th. It was both web and phone survey, and registered voters were verified during that process to reflect projected turnout for the May 2024 election. Questions about specific projects being considered, as well as community tolerance for tax rate increase to support a bond. So the part of the survey was prioritization of those questions that asked. So those categories that received the top priorities were security, safety, addressing overcrowding, and addressing growth. Those that received the lowest upon those priorities were fine arts and athletic programs. So to dive a little bit deeper into true numbers from the survey, look at this chart. There's a column that says survey predictions. It's showing a level of support for each proposition. The prediction is before learning anything about the bond. And so it's the most conservative estimation or worst case scenario for the voter turnout. Now, when you see a education process beginning during the survey, 28% shifted more towards positive than negative on the proposal. So what that's referring to, or what that will mean, is that if a solid education campaign is done during the process of the bond, that we'll see anywhere from 3 to 9% increase in the percent support. There's strong support for propositions that spell capital projects, which is Prop A, and for school and renovations as well, that also enhance security. Support for projects related to technology, fine arts, and athletics did not receive as strong support, but this is also in line with what the state has seen, or has seen across the state from district to district. As a committee, though, we believe it's critical to also continue to support technology for teaching and business continuity, as well as project support to be robust and growing fine arts and athletic programs. So the survey also asked the community if they supported a bond package, and if so, how much were they willing to spend? Results show strong support for bond packages with no tax rate. Still, majority supported the bond package with up to 1 cent tax rate increase. But as you can see, after 1, the support begins to wane. The information helped influence the committee's recommendation to make a recommendation within the 1% bond rate. So just kind of recapping real quick, there was strong support, 76%, for a future bond package at no tax increase. Only 7% of the survey takers said they didn't support a bond package. Support for a bond package at 1% was 63%, or 1 cent increase was 63%. Support for a bond package at 2 cents fell below the 50% mark. Strongest support is for projects that include facility and safety. Now we're going to talk about the projects themselves.
Now I get to,
Real quick question.
Yeah.
When you guys ran that, were you specifically asking to pass it like to the survey, 1 cent, 2 cents, or were you giving them 600, 650, $700 million number?
both.
Both.
Okay.
So now we're gonna make a formal recommendation to you all for consideration. My colleagues did not really go into the level of detail that we put into with ranking and prioritization. It was think, pair, share about 20 times over and over and over again. And it was such fruitful conversation because not only did we hold each other accountable to identify that we're not making these recommendations based on our individual perspective. That's just one part of the whole bucket. We didn't look at just what our 80 opinions were. We took the information from the community survey and really tried to stay within what we thought would be successful, but also mattered most to the community to impact our students, their quality of education, and making sure that it's not just 4 walls that they go to, but offering what they need for growth. So based on our projects and all of the recommendations, I know there's a lot on the screen, but I want to talk a little bit about the projects on an individual basis. The district's bond council, we then worked on these projects and to propose certain propositions. So the projects in green ranked the highest among the committee. The projects in yellow, as mentioned previously, ranked really important but potentially less critical. And the projects ranked in pink were the lowest on the exercise, meaning they might be important but maybe less critical and something to consider waiting for a future bond. On the bottom right, you're going to see the threshold for projects that could be funded at the 0, 1 cent, and 2 cent tax rate increase. As a committee, our goal really was to form the recommendation that met the 1 cent threshold because that's what the community said that they would support. Elementary 13 fell to the bottom of the list. It's clear that we know that we're probably going to need it. We know that GISD is growing and that that's something we will need to look for in the future. However, we prioritized elementary school 12 and the renovation of Old Benold as the new frost being the most critical ways that we can address the growth happening at the elementary level. So I'm going to be very intentional to just give you a second to just digest what you're seeing and really to just look at that prioritization.
Can I ask a question? Please. On the slide that had been sent to us under aging and evolving, and I might be missing it, but it was highlighted in very bright yellow, was the renovation of the Forbes weight room. And I don't see it on there. And the Forbes weight room of the 4 middle schools is horrendous from what I hear, even though they won the district meet.
Yes, so we definitely found that too. So along with accountability effort, that was something we're always looking for those. So I know that we addressed that. Melinda, do you want to share where that went?
So it is that first item under aging and evolving, where it says renovate and expand classrooms at Forbes. In Proposition A, that first item,
So it slid there into
Yes.
the green.
that is correct.
Yeah, yes, it's there.
I don't want any squishy children.
Yeah, so no, we talked in great detail about that. And so with the information and education, our committee stance and what we believe would be important, it did include that.
Thank you.
Yes. So as we move forward, this slide is what really takes out all of the red and is the green and yellow and what we are recommending for consideration for this group. So again, the projects are in green and yellow, and the estimated totals for each proposition are noted at the bottom of each proposition column. So the grand total for the recommended project comes to about $649.5 million. Just under the 1 cent threshold. So just letting you kind of digest that. And I want to be really clear that these projects that were in red on the previous slide are still important. And in our community, we learn every time we got together, we learn more about the needs and the evolving needs of the district. And I think that's where we look to you to make those considerations of how to accommodate these needs in the future. So I really would like to ask Dr. Pattaville, thinking about all the areas in red, do you want to add anything related to the critical projects that maybe the committee didn't identify as the most important, but something still needing to be considered?
No, absolutely. Thank you, Josh, for pushing it over to me. So, trustees, I would draw your attention first to Proposition A. Under Proposition A, where it says upgrade public announcement system, that is an item that has implications for school security as well. The ability to communicate across the campus and make sure that all areas are able to hear announcements is pretty critical. And those announcement systems are aging at our older schools, where the effectiveness to get communication out is a little bit compromised. At the bottom of that list, right above elementary 13, we have 10 white fleet vehicles. So our district white fleet that helps transport students to different events, they are in a state of moderate disrepair. And so being able to replace them is going to be a need. At the same time, if it is not covered under bond funds, we would have to find available funds out of our M&O operating in order to replace those. In Proposition B, that top item, evolving tech facility needs, that is a broad term to cover just basically aging infrastructure in technology that, again, we would have to pay for as a district. And then I'm going to also point out in Proposition B, the phone gateway replacement. So our phone system is at the end of its life cycle. And so we would need at some point to replace every phone across the school district, every phone system through some means. And so looking at it in terms of possible bond funds is something to consider as well. In Proposition D, I'm going to point out 2 items here. The track at GHS is in need of repair, but however, that didn't make the categories of green or yellow in what was a very thorough process. And as well, that might need your attention, but I know I at least want to point it out. The EVHS softball hitting facility, it is the only one out of baseball and softball that isn't indoors. They do have a hitting facility. It is outdoors, it is covered, but it is the only one, so I do want to point that difference out there. And then, of course, also with athletics, but in a separate proposition, is the district practice swim facility.
I have a question. Any of those, were those considered at the last time we had a CAC back in 2021 and were identified as not now, let's punt it till later?
I do not have that information for you, ma'am. I'm gonna,
Just because some of these that we keep talking about punting.
if one of my team, do you have this one
I
out?
don't have, I would be wrong to try to guess which ones, some of them look familiar enough that I feel like that.
When you say end of life cycle for the phone system, no longer we have manufacturer support, we change it parts, like.
Yeah,
we're
it's the,
in a bad spot, or?
yeah, the phone gateway is a hub that basically the operator, the digital operator that connects all phones. So it has reached, end of manufacturer support.
So if we change it parts, we can't do it, the big ones now, we have no problem.
Right.
Now, we identified as a group that, after learning more about these things, these are things that the community, it's not clear to us, right? These are not things we just think about. It's very operational, but the operation of the school is just as essential. And while many of us have vested interests in various programs or different things, buses or, it's those little pieces of information that we hope you also consider in your deliberation as well. Did you have anything else to add?
No, ma'am, thank you, sir.
So, in that case, okay, all right, well, it is time. Drum roll. Here's the big official ask. It is the Citizens Advisory Committee's recommendation that the school board consider calling a bond election for $649,501,678 to be on the May 4th, 2024 ballot. There will therefore be a 1% increase of the current tax rate, and given all of the discussion through our committee work, we feel strongly that this opinion reflects not only the opinions of the community, but also the wants and needs of our community and our kids. So this is not just, as Laura mentioned, about individual interest. This is for all of the children of our community that we hope will grow up and come back. That's what we hope, right? Okay, so we're going to take a look at this slide again. I'm not going to go through the details, just give the big overview one more time. Okay, so only the projects highlighted in green and yellow were the ones that would give us no more than a 1 cent tax increase. So again, green is 0 cent tax increase, and yellow is 1 cent tax increase. All right, this brings us to Proposition A. All right, this is the biggie. Okay, so in this one, this proposal includes capital projects. So these include various construction projects, renovations, and also expansions that are crucial and necessary in our very quickly growing district. But one thing that I think some of the others highlighted on, especially Laura, is that there are safety and security issues that are kind of embedded in each of these proposals that the general public may not understand or see. So, for example, in Prop A, we included some issues that do affect safety and security. These are going to include transportation and maintenance. So the buses, but also our maintenance vehicles. I understand, I've heard from people in the community that work for the school district, that we have some maintenance vehicles with hundreds of thousands of miles on them. So it's not just the white fleet that are in a state of disrepair, but our maintenance vehicles, our equipment for maintaining landscaping, etc. All of this needs to be looked at, and we need funding for replacement or repair or updating of that equipment. Also, and here is a safety and security issue that is more directly related to kids and teachers and administrators working in schools. HVAC. We cannot ignore HVAC in Texas, right? We know that we are sending kids to school when it is well over 100 degrees, right? Try learning and teaching in a classroom that does not have functioning AC in those months, and you'll notice that things are not getting done. Nobody's learning anything. All right, so please give us the AC. And then also we need for the board, as well as the public, to know that things such as the phone upgrades, things such as the PA systems, the clocks, etc., those are not frivolous or unnecessary wants. Those are crucial to the safety and security of our faculty members or staff members, and our children. So as a parent in this district, that's really important to me. Not only do I want my child to have access to excellent academics and access to the things that help him thrive and grow as a human being, such as in athletics and fine arts, but safety and security is of the utmost importance. And so I think it's important that, I know many of you here on the board understand that. You've been in schools, you've worked in schools, but not all the members of the public know that. So just wanted to re-emphasize that as we have done today. For Prop B, this is our technology proposition. So we know that technology, fine arts, and athletics rated lower on the community survey. But we believe that, again, if the community really knew and understood the fine details and how these propositions would actually impact our kids, our children directly, that there would have been more support. So the survey was given out using the language that was the most conservative language at the time, from what we understand, right? But we feel like very strongly, we discussed this as a committee several times, we feel like had there been more details, and like I said, if people understood why the schools need flooring, why they need a PA system and clocks, but also why they need things like the phone gateway and why they need the technology devices to be replaced, especially for student use, we feel like there would have been more support on the survey. So Prop B includes the replacing and adding of student and staff devices to accommodate for enrollment growth and life cycle replacement. We noticed that staff members rated this somewhat low as well, and we just want to help broaden understanding and share that a lot of teachers in the district just had refreshes of their equipment. Is that correct, Menon? Okay. So a lot of teachers just got new devices, so when they took the survey, they might not have realized that this meant also for student devices. And yes, I'm a parent in the district, and I will tell you right now, like, those devices need to be replaced. My son opened his Chromebook the other day and showed me how it is falling apart. He can use it, it's working, but it is falling apart. It probably won't be useful for any student next year. So GISD, we know the district did a fantastic job of taking us from 2 to 1, 2 devices for every 1 student, to 1 to 1 during the middle of a global crisis, which is incredible. The way the district got that done so quickly and efficiently. The problem is that now those devices must be replaced. So we're talking like what, it's been 4 years since we went 1 to 1, right? How long have you kept your last phone?
10 years.
Wow. All right, so, all right, let's see. Yeah, that's it. So take a moment to kind of mull that over if you want. Take notes. All right, moving on to Prop C. Woo, this is the fine arts proposition. Fine arts is incredible in this district. Okay, so as Angela mentioned, there was a 33% increase in participation here in just recent years. And one of the things that I think a lot of people in this community, again, don't know or understand is that every single middle schooler in this district participates in fine arts, which is incredible because fine arts spaces are inclusive spaces, and we know that kids thrive in places where they know that they are included and feel like they belong. Fine arts provides that for so many of the students in this district. It's incredible. But what is not incredible is the fact that we do have a major glaring equity issue where fine arts is concerned, and that is regarding the performance centers. So we have our center, sorry, so right now currently, we have the CLEP Performing Arts Facility at Georgetown High School, which we also know needs to be maintained. So this is a thing that was proposed in the last bond and failed. We need the public to know, like, we're at critical point with the CLEP Center. There are things falling apart in this Performing Arts Center. It needs upgrades. But the glaring equity issue is that Eastview does not have its own Performing Arts Center. And so we're seeing this large percentage of increase in participation, but we're not following that participation by providing the spaces for the performances. And so we're not only talking about orchestra and band performances and theater performances. You know, there are things that fine arts centers provide for the community as well. We know that it can serve as a community auditorium. We know that these spaces also can serve as art galleries for our visual arts students. So we ask as a committee that you all please review Prop C and take all of this into consideration as part of our recommendation. And then we're going to move on to Prop D. Okay, so again, we've got a glaring equity issue here because Eastview High School desperately needs a renovation and expansion to their weight room, talk about kids getting squished, and also to their locker rooms. All right, so they are in desperate need of these expansions and these repairs. And as Angela mentioned, there was a 38% increase in athletics participation in this district in recent years, which is absolutely incredible. We know that this is a district where multi-sport athletes are highly celebrated, right? So you don't have the space for those kids to do the things they need to do in order to be those champions and be those athletes, then it's going to hinder participation, or it's going to hinder their ability to perform. And this community loves its champions. So we feel like if the community really knew that this was a dire need, that they would be all in for supporting the growth of our champions. And again, one thing to consider as we continue is that Eastview High School's common spaces have been expanded, but those expansions do not include athletic spaces. And this is a high school that was built for 1,500 students versus the 2,100 that we're looking at now. All right, so again, equity issues, but also fine arts and athletics. These proposals for Prop C and Prop D also have a direct impact on student well-being, not just student academics. So just wanted to re-emphasize that. And that brings us to our sample ballot language. All right, so we know our ballot language and these propositions have to include that one little phrase that is mandated by the state legislature, whether there is a property increase or not. So for Prop A, we say that we recommend, or here's a sample, it might sound like the issuance of $597 million, $467,178 in bonds for school facilities, the purchase of school security technology, the purchase of the necessary sites for school facilities, and the purchase of school buses and vehicles, and the levy of taxes sufficient to pay the principal of and interest on the bonds. This is a property tax increase, whether it actually increases or not. We have to say that. Georgetown Independent School District Proposition B, the issuance of $20,328,500 in bonds for district-wide school technology and the levy of taxes sufficient to pay the principal and interest on the bonds. Again, this is a property tax increase, has to be there. Georgetown Independent School District Prop C, the issuance of $27,850,000 in bonds for district performing arts facilities and the levy of taxes sufficient to pay the principal of and interest on the bonds. This is a property tax increase. Georgetown Independent School District Proposition D, the issuance of $3,856,000 in bonds for district athletic facilities and the levy of taxes sufficient to pay on the principal of and interest on the bonds. This is a property tax increase. So this language no longer contains the language pertaining to the granularity of the needs. So that is another thing to consider as you review the sample ballot language. And after that, so as far as the next steps, you have a lot of decisions to make, and we hope that we have better informed your decision-making process through a community of individuals who not only care about Georgetown, but care about our students. There are families, there are friends, there are community members. Some of them, there's no one-on-one connection to. Some of it's just, we are individuals who want to make an informed decision, we want to be involved. And we believe that that's what you want from us as well, is we've spent months being informed and educated on the needs of our community and our school district. And we've had the opportunity to weigh our own input, the input of our community, to provide you with this recommendation. So it's clear to us that this is needed, that this bond is needed, and we want to make you aware of the current state of the election cycle as you prepare to call for a bond election. So here's a look at some of the important dates for planning for this spring. There is a special call meeting on February 12th for you to consider to call for a bond election. The deadline to do this is by February 16th. We know that April 4th is the deadline to register to vote in the May election, and then election day is May 4th. You might be wondering why May, why not November? It's one of those years where there's going to be a lot of discussion and discernment for voting in November. We have the presidential election. But more importantly, we can't wait. Our community is growing, our schools are at capacity. These are critical needs for the school district. We can't wait. So we hope that you'll take that into consideration, and we want to open the opportunity for you to engage with us in conversation about our process, our prioritization, and the recommendation that we've made for you today. And we'd like to offer opportunity for questions.
I would just like to give some feedback. I just think it's amazing the amount of work that has gone into this presentation. Dr. Padaville and the staff, I know that hours and hours have been put towards this effort, and it sounds like an extremely, and your feedback is extremely well organized, very clear, and everybody worked really, really well together. Really appreciative of all of your efforts. Because you've spent hours and hours on this project. One of the things that really stuck out to me that you know, I've been part of bond stuff for a long time. I don't know that in my recollection that I've ever had the experience where you went to the community and asked the question, what level of tolerance will you have for a tax increase? And the fact that you took the time to ask the community what they could tolerate, I think is a big step in gaining trust in our community. And then the fact that your recommendation is coming into the same, within that ballpark of what they are recommending, and felt like, I just think that is, I just really commend you for taking that effort to do that. My only question is about Proposition D. Is the reason that it's separated and out by itself because it is an athletic facility? Is there some of that language that you're required that those are separate? Is that the way, is that the reason why it's not included under city? Is because you're talking about $3 million here. That's my only question that I have.
Yes, ma'am. Our bond council, working with them, has helped us understand certain projects that can go under Proposition A and those that have to be separate. And, you know, just a clear kind of separation between those is if it is used on a daily basis for normal, and the almost the entire facility for normal classroom instruction, then it can be considered under Proposition A. But if it is a facility that is separate, that has a unique purpose other than daily instruction, then it has to be its own proposition. And I don't have to explain to you that in the last 5 to 10 years, the rules from the Attorney General on how it needs to be separated have gotten a little more granular.
And I would just add, as far as the committee, we've narrowed this down based on that 1 cent increase. Is that, you know, there's many of us on the committee that if we would have gone 3 cents, we want it all. Because we need it all. But we know the tolerance in the community, and so that is also why you see a smaller amount of items on Proposition B, is because of that prioritization process.
Okay, I have a question, and this is specifically about kind of what Prop A encompasses, because not just this bond, but the several past bonds, we're doing a lot where we're trying to make equity across the district. Campus has this, but this campus doesn't, and we're kind of playing catch up. And in this one too, you know, there's a couple things that GHS has that Eastview does not, and so we're trying to bring up. Does the new high school, the fourth high school we're building, already include those things that we've had to add on to Eastview after the fact?
Yes.
Is that in this?
Yes, ma'am. The design of the new high school will include all of the things that would, and as a result of this bond, would equalize the offerings at each of the high schools in terms of facilities.
And all the way down to like the middle school is gonna have all of the same stuff that we've kind of come to expect from the schools.
That is correct. At the same time, making sure that Forbes has the things it needs to be able to tell every community, every middle school has the same opportunities in terms of
In this fifth high school, the plans already include that stuff.
Yes, ma'am.
A question, a comment, both. One, thank you all so much. To kind of piggyback on what Jen said, I think taking the community's pulse on what they're willing to tolerate is critical, and I thank y'all for doing that. Around that, your recommendation for the 1 cent increase, on the survey prediction at the lowest level, it's looking at a 49.5% prediction. Can you talk a little bit about your willingness to almost have this come down to a coin flip in selecting that 1% increase? Because at the lowest level of prediction, it's 49.5% in support, right? Am I reading that correctly?
Take out.
There's a big delta there.
I think as a community and as our organization that we came up with, we want to try to give the district everything they want. And I think that the education piece is big, and to see that come up, but we're also very cognizant of kind of betting on that 2 or 3 or 6% to come up
With the education.
and losing the rest is the concern. So if the tolerance does not come up, and then we'll have to go through this process immediately the next year probably to call another bond, because these facilities are truly needed. We'd love to give the district everything they want, but we're concerned that if it doesn't, then we're faced with a different problem.
He said it perfectly, and I would just add to his response, which is we don't take the success of a potential bond package for granted. It's going to take a lot of communication, a lot of using existing relationships in this community to help inform the community. On about 70% of those who vote will be termed unaffiliated. 20 to 30% will be affiliated, meaning direct connection to the school district, employee, parent, grandparent. But the other 70%, we really need to work hard to make sure they get the information about our schools and about the needs.
That was going to be my question, the next step, to educate the community to vote yes. Y'all have a plan for that?
We really talked about it, and I know the reason a lot of us are like, what's next? We're ready for the what's next. So, I think that others might be able to add what that next step is, but yes, we have identified education for the community is crucial. And And so how can individuals on this committee partner and be in many spaces in Georgetown to say, here's what we're proposing, here's what we recommended, this is why it's important. I know for me as an individual, the learning curve to get to this point was great. I've never done anything like this before, but just a little bit of information made me feel so much better. And I think we have a duty as a community to educate and inform each other on what the needs are. And so I don't know if anybody wants to go into more detail about what's next, but we have discussed that, and many of us are already engaging in what that next step looks like following this.
And that also would include explaining to people exactly what a 1 cent increase would look like, affecting them yearly and monthly. And does anybody here have those numbers? Do you have those
For the average household.
Of what it would, how much would it cost the
The
average
impact
household?
on the average home would be $2.77 is what,
Yeah, okay, yeah, $2.77
a month.
a month, yeah.
And there was at our last meeting, there was a group already kind of broke off and started discussing how to promote the bond program, and whether it's social media, it's not really a political action committee, but some sort of a group that can promote it. That discussion has been ongoing within the committee, and they're starting to organize and way to promote it themselves, because we do know the limitations that the ISD will have once the bond is officially called, where you can give information, but you can't promote it.
So they can as citizens.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's
Yes, absolutely.
There is going to be a pact to raise funds to publicize this and educate people about this.
So I'm asking this question because everything connects. Several of you said you've been on advisory councils before, but this has been your most positive experience.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about what stood out in this particular advisory council? Because if it was effective for you, then it
I
can be
think
effective for
the
other
whole
humans.
structure that you as a school board have done with your staff, your superintendent, and everything else, that has made this process enjoyable. And, and we disagreed within our committee meetings, that we had people that said, no, I don't want, and then you think about it, and then you come back and say, oh, I understand what they're saying. But we have the environment that was created, and the superintendent did a super job. I mean, that is, you guys made a great choice. I mean, it's amazing.
Tell me that on new fits.
There's also a lot of transparency. I felt like there was more transparency. And I felt like the people that were brought to actually speak to us and give us the numbers and the data did so from a position that just felt more accessible. They answered questions. There was also more than one. So, and there was just an incredible feeling of support, like I said, for our schools. And I don't know what was different. I mean, definitely we had some people in there that were going to be the devil's advocate for everything and just say, no, 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 like we also need that, right? But just, I don't know. This is going to sound a little esoteric, but it actually felt joyful when people talked about schools, at least in maybe I just have really awesome people in my groups, but.
I believe that part of the difference was the level of background information that was provided, the detail that was provided on why the needs that were being identified, why they were needs, specifically what campuses they were needs at, and then the ability for members of the committee to look at that information and then rank those needs based on it being provided, as opposed to them coming in already some sort of ranked order.
Mark, did you have something?
Well, she touched on it. We had much more information this time than we've had in the other two CAC responsibilities that we've had in the past. I commend administration for their openness and letting us know I got everything that needed to be considered in this one. That has not been the case in previous auditions. So I recommend administration.
Trustees,
When you guys were looking at these propositions and packaging them, did you take into consideration reductions in any of these things? Instead of 15 buses, can we get by with 8 and reducing numbers, or did you just take them as presented and carry the whole number?
We questioned everything. I mean, we definitely, we asked, you know, what can we do, what can we slim down without compromising the value and the quality of what the ask is? And, you know, a lot of this, the numbers are still changing a little bit down to the detail. But, you know, as far as the number of buses, not necessarily, but it was certainly, you know, we wanted to make sure that we were saying, yes, it's important, or yes, it can wait. We didn't necessarily get to that granular detail, but I know that Dr. Padwell probably.
The hardest thing, and I keep bringing this up, is that my taxes dropped considerably. My school taxes went way down. And we could adopt 2 of these proposals here, and my taxes will not equal what they were 2 years ago. And so the point is now, whether that's going to continue, whether the state will continue funding schools and paying the portions they're paying now to make the tax rate drop, we don't know. So, you know, because they don't really like public schools, so most part. We have a gem here. We need to keep refining it, and we need to talk to people. Pull out the tax bill and look what it was 2 years ago. And this is what it would be with this bond passing. And if we could do that in our committee, pro-action committee pass a bond, that should be successful.
And looking at numbers, like for example, the buses, some of us were probably more willing to just go all the way with that and just go ahead and go with the recommendation, because I'm looking at it, for example, you know, but I'm looking at it from the perspective of a parent, and I know, you know, that 15 buses might be the difference between a kid staying on a bus for an hour to get home or more, or taking 30 minutes to get home. Or are we going to have kindergartners and first graders riding the same bus as middle schoolers? Are we going to have middle schoolers riding the bus with high schoolers? None of those situations are appropriate. So, from a parent perspective, with some of these things, I didn't even question the reduction, because I know that what we have, even though it's adequate, it's not always appropriate. Like I said, when my child was in middle school, he had to ride the bus with high schoolers. Not always a good thing.
That also speaks to the level of trust and transparency that the district had with us.
Yes.
In that we trusted that they had slimmed any recommendation down as much as possible.
And I'm not looking on buses specifically.
Yeah.
People do care about us.
Yeah, we need to explain it, so thank you.
The question was more, are there things that we can look at to weed out to allow us to maybe pull back some of these items that we may need for safety reasons that we're now looking at dropping? I mean, there's,
Like the red items?
yeah, without the swing center, we're talking about $7 million to get everything else that's in red on here.
Right.
Even if we want to pull it all back in, so if we pull just what Dr. Padwell, I don't know if we have that number, what your items, but items on that red list were, I'm guessing somewhere around 3.5 million. So where can we squeeze 3.5 million? But to Anthony's point, if we can drop 8% off of what you guys recommended, we can get a 0% or 0 cent increase and be way back up into the threshold for confidence in getting this approved, because we can't afford to not have campuses that we desperately need. So it's just, that's kind of why I was questioning where and what you guys looked at, try to see what we can maybe take the trend we're going for.
Understand is that there's about 10% cap on the taxable value for a homestead. There's about $1.6 billion in backlog that's going to come online in the next few years. Is that 10% goes up. So that's a lot of cushion.
I would recommend maybe, I mean, I'm sure many of y'all do this already, but I would recommend visiting the actual campuses and taking a look at the specific items on the list. Because, like, for example, the campuses that I've been to might have decent library furniture, but that's not all the campuses around the district. I worked at a high school in a neighboring district, in a high school that was built in the early 90s and was given used library furniture And the library furniture, when I lived there in 2019, was falling apart. It was like 40 years old. Like chairs, kids are sitting on chairs like 40 years old. And you know what kids do to chairs, and Amanda knows. Amanda was there too. So yeah, that's my personal recommendation as an educator and a parent. Just take a look.
One thing that we do know is every time we come back, they give us the initial cost. They come back every meeting with updated costs. There's a lot of value engineering that's going on where they're looking at each project and they're looking to, reduce those costs as much as they can so they can fit additional projects in. So we really do appreciate that. And we're really trying to give the best experience for the kids, but also be conscious about the cost and eliminate any unnecessary costs, but still have that same experience.
Trustees, I'm going to just build on that and just say we're going to continue to collect your feedback and just exactly what Mr. Nichols said. We are continuing to look at projected costs of the major projects, especially middle school, high school, elementary. And if there are opportunities to see that any of these amounts are brought down within reasonableness, because we don't want to put ourselves in a situation where we can't afford a school building, then we will engage you in conversations about some of those items in the red being brought into existing propositions. Trustees, at this time, I think it's a good point to take a 5 to 10 minute break and give you the opportunity to engage with some of our community members. But thank you very much.
Thank you all so much.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for letting me be here to give you an update on Policy Update 122. And so just as a reminder about policy updates, remember we've got legal and local. So we had about 89 legal updates for this particular policy update, but there's not anything that we can do with those, right? And then our local policies, we have 10 of those that I will give you a quick summary on as we go through here. All right, so the first one we have up here is CQB local. Really what this one is about is if there's a breach of system security, districts must disclose this to affected persons or entities within the time frame established by law, and really that's gone from 60 days to 30 days. The next one is CSA local, and that one's really about facility standards, safety and security. So commissioners' new school safety rules for facilities that went into effect at the end of May. Dr. Stoner and her team have worked to implement these new requirements across our organization. DC local is about employment practices, and this one is really about regarding the hiring of bus drivers. So as long as they're not related to school board members, and the superintendent has the ability to approve those hires, and we won't have a problem.
So you don't want us driving the bus?
It's really more about hiring somebody that's related to you as a bus driver. All right, the second slide, we'll move on to EHB local. And this one is really just kind of in summary, it's about testing students for dyslexia and other things related to those services. EHBC local, this policy will actually be deleted and is replaced by the next one, which is EHBCA local. And this one really has to do with, so the first part of this legal was part of Update 121, and this local policy was created to align with that in regards to House Bill 1416 and the requirements around accelerated learning plans for students who fail to perform satisfactorily on the state assessment.
Okay, so stop, just go back to that one. So recommended change in local plan reflect a parent's ability to request a particular teacher act. So what they're saying is that a parent could request a particular teacher after a child has failed to perform on the STAR test. Is that what it's saying? But it's no longer limited to just grades 3, 5, and 8.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Anything else on that one, Jen?
No, I mean, that's a real big change right there. Okay.
All right, EIC local has to do with if a student elects to retake a course after a passing grade has been earned, then the new grade will be excluded from class rank. So that's signing that one. FEA local has to do with attendance, compulsory attendance, and this allows our students to have an excused absence up to 2 days during their junior and senior year to visit a professional workplace to explore a career in the field. So we've done some of this for colleges and military and things like that, and they've added the option for career exploration. All right, FFB local is about creating procedures for students and staff to report concerning behavior, including allowing employees to keep his or her identity confidential. So if there's a situation where they feel like they need to report something that could be of danger, then they're able to do that. And then our last one is FL local. And this one's about accelerated learning committee has been replaced with the accelerated education plan related to the requirement for accelerated instruction when certain students don't perform satisfactorily on state assessments.
We should go back, I'm sorry, no, we should go back to that last one again.
Trustees, do you have any questions on update on things at all? I've talked to Ms. Hannah, we're going to table the budget discussion until next month. There's no decision points that are happening at the next board.
Cram all this into 10 minutes?
Well, here's the thing, we could. That would not be useful. So we're going to table it because there's not a decision point coming at the February board meeting. So we'll continue to keep you updated.
And in the meantime, find more money.
And in the meantime, spare for more money. Yes, ma'am.
Gives you an opportunity to increase those numbers in the size.
At this time, unless there's any more questions, we